Hey everybody, and welcome to my second video series. This video series is focused on COP23, which is the UN climate negotiations. It's called COP23 because it's the 23rd time the Conference of Parties have met. The Conference of Parties is a fancy way of talking about the 195 nations who have agreed to the United Nations Framework for Climate Change. This framework is essentially an agreement between nations to help move us towards the greenhouse gas reductions that the Conference of Parties agreed to. The COP23 conference is unlike any other conference I've been to. There's two zones, the Bonn zone and the Bula zone. In the Bula zone are all of the federal delegates sent by each nation to negotiate on their behalf. In the Bonn zone are the climate activists and non-governmental organizations who are also working towards the greenhouse gas reductions that the global community wants, but the way that the national delegates and the activists work are very different. Oftentimes, the federal government and activists and non-governmental organizations can be at odds, but COP23 is the first kind of conference I've been to where the federal organizations and non-federal organizations and activists are working side by side. This level of transparency is something I've never seen before. At COP23, I focused my attention towards loss and damage and adaptation to climate-related natural disasters. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, is a voluntary group of thousands of scientists from all over the world. These scientists comb through the literature, the scientific literature that we have today, to see where we are in our climate and how climate change is affecting our world. The IPCC puts out these reports, and they're on their 5th report now. In this latest report, they talk a lot about natural disasters. The reason that natural disasters are linked to climate change is because as we emit more greenhouse gases, they get trapped in our atmosphere and sort of form this blanket that traps the sun's energy, which is in the form of heat. So the more greenhouse gases that are emitted into our atmosphere, the more heat gets trapped into our planet. When the heat gets trapped into our planet, it increases global temperatures. And with this increase in global temperatures, there's a lot of effects on the global weather patterns. The effects of the increase in temperature on our global weather patterns most often results in intensified natural disasters. So areas that often receive a lot of precipitation will get even wetter, and areas that don't receive a lot of precipitation will get even drier. So this results in both flooding and drought. So during my 5 days at COP23, I attended the adaptation and loss and damage negotiations, and I went to a lot of non-governmental events where they were talking about what people are doing outside of the government to help their country adapt to the increase in natural disasters. In the negotiations, they were talking a lot about a fund for developed nations to fund the adaptation and mitigation approaches developing nations have to take to deal with these increased natural disasters. The general logic behind this is that developing nations are facing the environmental burden of increased natural disasters, which are for the most part caused by developed nations emitting greenhouse gases throughout the industrial era of their nation. So developing nations have to adapt and respond to these disasters that are not caused by their emissions. These negotiations were fascinating to watch, and it was even more interesting to see what organizations outside of the government are doing to help deal with loss and damage due to climate-induced natural disasters. If you're interested in this topic and want to learn more, check out my 5-part series that it will be linked below, or go to my website, mariajollythinks.com.